Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. The aim of today's presentation is to provide you with an overview of the StrideSAFE product and show how it can assist the industry better manage the welfare of our horses. The protests at Aintree only weeks ago remind us of the challenges facing the industry. Activism is on the rise, challenging the validity of the industry's social licence. So what can we do? For the last 20 years, nearly every professional sport, except racing, has been monitoring the welfare of their athletes using wearable technologies, measuring their athletes when they're exposed to the highest loads. By contrast, the racing industry hasn't been monitoring the welfare of horses in races at all. Mostly we make subjective observations of horses at the trot, when what we should be doing is measuring them at the gallop. So why hasn't this been done in racing? Well, the good news is it is being done. We are now measuring horses in races, and we can identify when they are at increased risk of injury. So what is StrideSAFE? StrideSAFE is a low-cost, non-invasive screening system that identifies horses at risk of injury. A sensor carried in the saddlecloth measures the horse's movement 800 times a second on 3 axes, providing us with 2,400 measurements a second, or around 1,000 measurements a stride. Each horse has a unique way of moving. We call this the horse's fingerprint. We monitor the horse's movement against this fingerprint and flag when it deviates significantly from it. When horses are more than 2 standard deviations from the mean, they get an amber flag and should be monitored closely. When they are more than 3 standard deviations from the mean, they get a red flag and should be investigated thoroughly. Here is a real-life case study that shows you how this works. This slide shows the fingerprint of a racehorse. The mean for this horse is represented by the solid black line in the middle, and the dotted lines either side are plus or minus 1 standard deviation. When we overlay recent race data for this horse, we can see that the earliest 5 runs fall within the fingerprint, indicating green flags. However, when we get to the 6th run in this campaign, we can see that it deviates significantly from its fingerprint. This is a red flag run. What's important to note here is this horse has just finished 2nd. The trainer, the jockey, and the owners are all happy. The horse is not on anyone's radar as being at risk of injury. However, we know the risk has increased significantly. The next run, some 3 weeks later, results in a catastrophic injury and the horse being euthanized on the track. So had we intervened following the red flag run and investigated this horse thoroughly, it may still be alive. But we can see much more than what you can see on this slide. We can actually see inside each individual stride in great detail. The next slide shows the first 10 strides out of the gate for 3 different levels of injury risk. The first chart shows the first 10 strides out of the gate for a sound Group 1 horse. Notionally, this is close to the optimum stride pattern. It is smooth, uncluttered, and the magnitude of the peaks is moderate. The second chart is from a horse in New York that was red flagged in a stakes race. You can see there is more clutter starting to infiltrate the stride pattern. Note that despite this horse being red flagged, it still won the race. The take-home message here is poor performance is not necessarily an indicator of injury risk. Good horses will find a way to go fast even when they are in trouble, which is why they must be monitored. The third chart is from the same horse 6 weeks later. This time it's a Group 1 race, and this time it finishes 4th. Now, you don't have to be an expert in biometric signal analysis to see the deterioration in this horse's stride over that time. It's pretty obvious. More clutter and higher peak values means this horse is in a lot of trouble. In this race, it was nearly 6 standard deviations away from its mean fingerprint. 10 days later, this horse fractured a sesamoid in track work and was euthanized. So a stakes-winning horse was lost to the industry. Had it been investigated thoroughly at its first red flag event 6 weeks earlier, it may still be with us. So to summarize, the gold standard in human medicine is to screen the population with non-invasive, low-cost screening tools and then direct those individuals identified as high risk into advanced diagnostic modalities. The take-home message from us to you is this can now be the gold standard in equine medicine too. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today.